Andrew Tennant, Head of Performance at Cricket Scotland. Andy, following the agreement of the Pro Series, which now replaces the Regional Series, can you tell us a bit about the rationale about going from 3 teams down to 2?
Yeah, it's really related around performance. The reality of the situation was, after having had 3 years of the Regional Series, the standard of cricket was probably slightly closer to club cricket than it was international cricket. And I think we want that stepping stone competition. We want the standard to be higher and much better in terms of preparing our players to play international cricket. So I think the feeling was that the best way to improve that level of cricket was actually to have one fewer team, and really to make it, the reality is make it harder to get a game and to create more competition for places. And the reality of that situation is that it means that the standard of play should go up. So it's really very much a performance-based decision. We're not trying to exclude anyone. It's just going to be much harder to get a game, and it's going to be much tougher to make those teams.
How are these teams going to be picked?
Yeah, going from 3 teams to 2 obviously presents its challenges. We do want the best 24 to 30 players in the country on the park, so it was important not to get too hung up with regional identities, which is why we've called the 2 teams the Reivers and the Highlanders. But effectively the Cricket Scotland Central Selection Committee will have an input into the selection of the squads, and then there will be some players who are picked regionally, so there will be 2 regional selection panels with representation from the national selection panel on each, but pretty much the coach and the manager and the selection advisor will pick the teams for each of the pro teams.
And of course, going from 3 teams down to 2, you'll be hoping to retain a sort of bit of identity between the 2 teams.
Yeah, it's really important that we do that. I think players always play better when they're motivated and they have an affinity with what they're doing, and obviously we want the supporters and people out there and the clubs to get behind their teams as well. So while we didn't want to get hung up with a Western or an Eastern or a Glasgow or an Edinburgh prefix on the teams, it's pretty clear that the Reivers team will play its home games sort of in and around Glasgow and West and Central Scotland, while the Highlanders team will play their home games in Edinburgh, Tayside and the North East, and we'll try and pick as many players from those areas and those teams as we can. But as I said, we didn't really want to get too hung up with that, because we want the best players on the field. So if we need to move players around to do that, then we will, because it is about the best 22, 24, 30 players in Scotland, pitting their wits against each other for selection for the national team.
So, sort of moving forward, what's the sort of the end game for the Pro Series, if you like?
I think 2 things. I think firstly we want it to be the platform for professional cricket in Scotland, so we want those 2 teams to be our professional teams moving forward, and we want them to be playing at the requisite standard, and really to give those players the opportunity to stake a place and stake a claim for a place in the international team. But also for those players to get a really high quality of cricket. So I think it's important to raise the standard and be the platform for the professional game in Scotland. But also with an eye to wider, a wider agenda, where it's no secret that we want to look to expand this to be a cross-border competition and have our two pro teams playing against the best pro teams in Ireland and the Netherlands and elsewhere if possible. So we hope it will grow one day into a pan-European competition, and that will hopefully be sooner rather than later. We're hoping to announce some cross-border games this season, and we're hoping that in future, as I say, that will grow into a much bigger competition. The similarities with the kind of Celtic League in rugby, or the Rabble Pro Direct, whatever it's called now, there's clear parallels, and I think cricket can learn some lessons from that, while not completely diving down the rugby route. I think there's certainly an economy of scale there, and a standard of play that all the high performance countries in Europe would want to see, and I think we want to be part of that. So this is about putting the building blocks in place to make sure we're really well prepared for that.
Good. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Andy.
You're welcome.
We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.